Thank you so much for joining us for a special conversation regarding Cumberland County Schools transition to Plan A that begins on Monday, April the 12th. We have with us some of our CCS leadership to share some changes that will be noticeable or that are going to be implemented as part of our transition to Plan A to help families know how to prepare and what is needed before we make this transition. We have with us Donna Fields, our Executive Director of Operations, Ms. Shirley Bolden, who is our Director of Health Services, and Mr. Ernest Gillespie, who is our Director of Transportation. Thank you all for joining us. So we will go ahead and get started. And Donna, we will start with you. As you've shared with us before, the conversations about our buildings and what they will look like and what families could expect as far as having students in the building. What are we looking at now with more students entering the building with the transition to Plan A?
Sure, thanks. So it is likely, of course, that more students will be in the building because in Plan B, the students are divided into two cohorts. And so half the children come on Monday and Tuesday, the other half come on Thursday and Friday. Well, now all students who choose an in-person option will be attending all 4 days. So we'll see probably a little increase in the screening time that occurs when kids get to the school. The only other thing operational-wise that we will see is the difference between Plan A and Plan B is in Plan A, it doesn't limit the number of children in a classroom. So the social distancing is not quite as strict. In Plan B, it's 6 feet. In Plan A, it's just maintain as much social distance as you possibly can. So really, that's going to be the biggest difference, I think, that we see. As far as operationally, I'll have to of course, increase my supply deliveries for cleaning and sanitizing and things like that, because now it's almost like attendance will be doubled. Yeah.
Will there be any significant changes for safety procedures in the building on the operation side? And we know that students will be able to attend classes 4 days a week because we will have a Wellness Wednesday. So what will those changes look like, and what will Wellness Wednesday consist of?
Okay, so really, Wellness Wednesdays will not change because there's a Wellness Wednesday in Plan B. But what happens on Wellness Wednesday is on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, the custodians are really focusing throughout the day on disinfecting the high-touch areas throughout the school. So sometimes we might kind of have to switch priorities, taking yard work, for example, off the task list for those days, and that'll have to occur on Wednesdays. Wednesdays, they will be doing a thorough cleaning of the school. Again, as well as their routine work, they will be really focusing on disinfecting high touch areas, things like that, making sure that they're distributing any replenishment supplies for classrooms that are needed. They'll be more thoroughly cleaning and disinfecting stationary playground equipment, and just kind of catching up on the things that have had to be shifted a little bit with priorities during the week while children are there.
Okay.
Mhm.
So thank you for sharing that information with us
Yes.
on the operations side. So, Ms. Bolden, in Health Services, your team has worked diligently throughout this process to make sure that the health and safety protocols are in place. We see you are now diligently at a vaccination site, making sure we have those things in place. So, what health and safety protocols will remain in place as we transition into Plan A?
Okay. All students are going to must wear a face mask in school and on buses, and all staff must wear a face mask in school buildings and offices. We will continue to provide PPE and face masks for students, teachers, and staff. Social distancing protocols are going to be required for anyone who enters our building. We're going to continue to limit visitors into school buildings under Plan A. We're going to continue with our daily symptom screening checks so that any student or person who enters the building has a quick assessment of their COVID-19 if they have any COVID-19 symptoms. And we're going to be making sure families are notified. If there is a positive case in the building, we will send a letter of notification or either a parent link call to the entire school, letting you know that there was a case. And then if your child was directly impacted, you will receive a call from the Office of Health Services and a letter from the school.
So with those pieces in place, and then when we transitioned to Plan B, there was also the use of a Qualtrics screener. And Donna mentioned early this screening process will exist. It may take a little longer because we will now have more students in the building. Will families continue to complete that screener in the transition to Plan A?
Yes, and we want to remind families that the very first time they went on to the Qualtrics survey that they completed the attestation form, and that just made a commitment to say, I will not send my child to board the bus or to the school building if they are not well. So they will continue to do that. We encourage you that if your child does have a phone, you can screenshot it. If they don't worry about it. We have a dashboard where they arrive. We will be able to look on that dashboard and see if they're cleared to attend school. Also, if someone is sick in your home and has been diagnosed with COVID-19, we ask that you stay at home, allow your child to remain at home. They will have a virtual learning day. Notify the principal, and then of course we will provide any support that you need from the Office of Health Services. So you'll be getting well checks. We'll call in, see how the symptoms are progressing, just to make sure that you're well and that we can get your child back to school as soon as possible. Also want to touch on and say that Plan A does not require schools to reduce the number of students in the classroom. So just remind your child to practice the 3 W's. You know, when they're going to the restroom, to wait their turn before going to the sink, to wash their hands. We want to make sure that we can keep our buildings open. And we know we can if all faculty, students, and staff follow the 3 W's.
Thank you for sharing that with us. That's very important. Those pieces were important in Plan B and will continue to be even more important in Plan A. So we have our operations. We know what's happening in the buildings, the changes that we will see. We know on the health services side, some of those protocols that are in place to make sure that our students and our staff remain safe. And then we have our transportation conversation. So we know that some of our students use bus transportation to go back and forth from school to home and back again. So, Mr. Gillespie, for transportation, how will our bus services change as the district transitions to Plan A?
The biggest change for transportation involves the number of riders. Under Plan A, we are no longer required to limit ourselves to 1 student per seat. We can use the full capacity of the bus. All of the other safety measures will be followed. Everyone on the bus, the driver, any monitors, all students are required to wear masks. And where possible, we still want students to social distance. So if there's not a reason to sit 2 to a seat, if there are only 24 students on the bus, then we'll sit 1 to a seat and only double up when the capacity is needed. But we can operate the buses at full capacity.
And the parents are making the decision if they are deciding to send their students back to school. What is the timeline that they have to inform the schools of their plans to ride the bus?
Okay, the district currently has the CCS Learning Options Commitment Form out there, a survey for every parent. We encourage every parent to submit that, select their options. If they want to ride the bus while they're doing that, they simply answer yes to the question, will your child ride a bus to school? Once we receive all of that data, the schools will put it into PowerSchool, and when we pull that information out, we will be able to route those students that want transportation. But they have to get the information in by the 22nd of March. I think the deadline is 5 p.m. In order for us to capture that data, get it put in, and then route students.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Thank all 3 of you for joining us today and giving us an update. We know things will look a little different, but Cumberland County Schools has a plan in place for what our buildings will do, what our health services will do, what our transportation will look like, so that families can make the best decision for them. Again, remember, March 22nd is the deadline for that learning options form to be complete to decide whether your family or your student will be returning face-to-face or remaining virtual as we enter into Plan A beginning Monday, April the 12th of 2021. Again, thank you all for joining us. We hope that you have a wonderful day. And families, thank you for joining us as well. Okay. Dr. Stacy Wilson Norman, our Chief Academic Officer. Dr. Wilson Norman, with the changes to Plan A that we are going to begin on April the 12th, what are the learning options for families for Plan A?
Plan A includes 2 basic learning options for families that all pre-K through 5th grade students will attend schools 4 days per week beginning April 12th, as well as all 6 through 12 students will attend schools 4 days per week. Wednesdays will be reserved for Wellness Wednesdays, which will allow deep cleaning of the schools and allow students to work on assignments. So that is the face-to-face option. Families who still need virtual, they may remain virtual by just completing that form and letting the school know that they want to remain virtual. If you're a student at Cumberland Academy, you don't need to do anything. There is no change at this time for you. That is business as usual for Cumberland Academy.
So what do families do to make the selection? So they have, I think there's a timeline for them to choose what option they're interested in. And what time, when should they submit that information?
March 22nd by 5 o'clock is the drop dead date for all families to have made their selections. That there is a link on our website that they can quickly go in and fill out their information and make the selections for all of their children. So if you have 1 child, make the selection for 1. If you have 4 children, make your selection for all 4 children.
Okay, and in the Plan A changes, will that impact the way instruction is given to students? And how will it look different versus for students that are in the classroom face-to-face versus those students that are choosing to be virtual?
Those students who are choosing to be virtual will log into their WebEx link just like they have always done, and they will be connected to their classroom. Students who have chosen the face-to-face option, they will follow their school schedule and be inside their classroom as well. Both students who are virtual and students who are face-to-face will follow the normal operating school schedule. And we preview this, and students have been experiencing this in Plan B, and it will just continue in Plan A.
Okay.
They will, students who are coming face-to-face will still need to bring their laptop charged and their charger. Students at home would still need their laptops available. So the main thing is just making your selection for Plan A.
Okay. And that the options for families to complete that form has to be done by March the 22nd.
Yes.
Virtual Academy students, this is not pertaining to them, correct? They are where
Correct.
They are for the remainder of the year.
for the remainder of the year.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for sharing that information. All of it's key. Anything else you think parents need to know in their decision-making time frame between now and March 22nd?
I think the March 22nd date is very important because we want to make sure that we provide maximum customer service for our families, that we have the right amount of food ordered for students who are coming in face-to-face, as well as transportation assignments as close to a child's home, that we have our classrooms set up and we are prepared and ready to receive our students. We've been waiting on this day for a long time, and we want to be very prepared when our students come back.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Wilson Norman. You and your team on the academic side, of course, have been working diligently both in the virtual world and in Plan B, and will continue to do so as we transition into Plan A. Thank you, families, for joining us. Do not forget, complete your learning options form by March the 22nd at 5 p.m., and we will begin Plan A on Monday, April the 12th, 2021. Thank you for joining us and have a wonderful day.